Hello and welcome back to Gapeys Garden. It's time for our July fig update. Now, we've had a lot of really warm temperatures, especially this week. We had the hottest day of the year today, which was 99 degrees, and we're expecting more 90-degree temperatures for the rest of this week. So figs really like those hot temperatures, and it really gets those figs growing fast. So let's take a look and see how they're doing. We are going to start with our in-ground figs today. So this one is the Desert King, and if you've seen my past fig updates, you will know that this one pretty much died back to the ground this winter, and it just only in the last couple of weeks started growing again. So it's starting to put out quite a few branches here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 pretty decent sized branches and leaves. And it's starting to look really good. I was tempted to actually dig this out and get a new one, but I'm gonna let it go for the rest of the season and see how it does. And I may try to overwinter it again with a little bit of protection. This is only a Breba producer here, so it's not gonna produce any figs this year, but hopefully we'll get some next year. Now, another one of our in-ground figs is Olympian. This is one that I just planted in ground this past spring, and we've only got, I think, just this one little main crop fig on it. It was loaded with Breba figs when I planted it, but we got some cool temperatures and they all dropped. So I don't think this one is going to be producing any figs this year. I'm not sure that one is going to be able to reach maturity, but I guess we'll wait and see. Now, the last of the in-ground figs is Latarula or honey fig, and this is one I did protect this winter. I didn't protect it the previous winter, and it ended up dying back to the ground just like the Desert King, but it is looking really good. Unfortunately, it did not get any Breba figs on it either. I think it did have a few at the beginning of spring, but they all dropped from the cold temperatures. And actually, I'm not seeing any main crop really forming on this, so I don't think we're gonna get any main crop figs on this either this year, unfortunately. And here we have a wall of figs on the back deck. These are all the ones that I started rooting this year from cuttings I received from some local fig growers. So let's start over here on the end. We've got Rosalino here. This one is doing really well. It does have a little bit of the fig mosaic virus, I think, on just that one leaf. All the others look to be doing pretty well. No figs on any of these, I don't think, but if I do see any, I'm picking those off because I want these to focus on root development, not fruit development this year. Next year, I'll let them go and produce fruit. This one here is called The One. Now, this one seems to be having a lot of leaves coming out kind of all clustered at the top. It's not really getting much length on the stem. This one's not too bad, but this one here is just kind of bunching up there at the top, so not sure what the deal is with that. And then here we've got another Burgessot grease. So I think this is 3 that I have. So this one has actually, it does look like there's some little tiny baby figs, so I'll let those get a little bit bigger and then I'll just pinch those off. But this one is doing really well. And then we've got a couple of Vern's Brown Turkey. So this is one that really rooted very quickly. I think it was the first one that I potted up into a bigger container. I've got all these ones here in, I believe they're 2 or 2.5 gallon containers. But this one here actually dropped all of its leaves sometime, I think it was last month. I think I forgot to water it one day or something, and it just dropped all the leaves. But it has come back really, really nicely. Lots of new leaf growth already. So that one has recovered pretty well. And then this Vern's Brown Turkey is a bit smaller. I did pot this one up a little bit later. This leaf here has gotten a little bit crispy. I don't know if it's from the sun or what. I am rotating these every few days or so, or maybe once a week, just so they get an even distribution of sunlight and they don't grow too much in one direction. And then I've got a few of these Old Yellers. So this is another one that rooted really pretty well, but it was a very vigorous rooter and probably the second one that I potted up. And this came from an Ivy Organics giveaway actually that I won early, I think it was in February. And then I've got this one here. This one is in a little bit smaller container. I think this might be a 1.5 gallon or so. But this one was potted up a little bit later. It does have a stem coming out of the ground here. I might end up cutting that off, I'm not sure. But it's doing pretty well there. And then this one here is Marius Black Greek. And this one is the one that I mentioned last time. The leaves feel a little bit different. They're kind of a little bit fuzzy compared to all the other figs, which are more kind of a smooth feeling. But this one is doing really, really good too. It's got quite a few branches coming out there. And then this one here is another Marius Black that I potted up a little bit later. So this one's not doing quite as well. There is some browning on some of the leaves there, but we'll see how that one does. It's a nice big fat cutting. The fatter the cutting, it seems to be the better they do at rooting. And then this one here is my only longue out, and I really like the leaves on this one. They kind of have long fingers, but it's got quite a few leaves all kind of pushing out at once. The stems are pretty thin. You can see that they're really thin stems, and they're not growing super fast. So we'll have to see how that one does. And this one's in, I ran out of the larger containers, so I started using just whatever I could find available. This one is a 2-gallon container. And then, oh, this is another old yeller. So I've got quite a few of these old yellers. I think I have 4 total. But this one is doing really, really good. Again, nice rooter. This leaf, the tip of this leaf is a little bit burnt, but otherwise it's doing really good. Now these last few are the most recently potted up varieties. So this one here is a yellow long neck, and it is just putting out some new growth there, but this was in those cups that I started them in for a long time. I just potted these up, I think 2 weeks ago. And then this one here is Smith. This one, it was very, very popular in our fig tasting last year, so I was excited to give this one a try, but it's not looking great. But hopefully now that it's potted up into some better soil, I think it will perk right up. And then the last one here that I potted up is Socorro Black. So it's just got one little leaf there, but it does look like it's putting out or trying to put out some more leaves there, so it will hopefully perk back up. And then we still have 3 that are in cups. I'm not sure if I'm going to pot these up. I don't really have any more containers to put them in, and they are duplicates of ones I've already potted up. So we've got the Rosalino here, and this one, another old yeller. So I really don't need 4 old yellers, so I don't really know what to do with that guy. And then we have one more Smith. I wouldn't mind potting this one up if I had some more containers to put that in. But these last 3, they just didn't have as good of root growth, so that's why I haven't potted them up yet, other than I don't have any containers to put them in. But I'll search around and see if I can find something to put them in and go from there. Now all of the remaining figs are in containers. The 2 largest containers are these green ones here, which I believe are 7-gallon containers, and they are self-watering, so that helps hold in the moisture a little bit better. This first one here is Burgessot Grease, and we've got some really nice sized main crop figs forming. And one thing I like to do around this time of year is look for any really tiny figs that are on the tree that are a lot smaller than the others. So for example, this one here, that one I'm thinking is likely not going to reach maturity, so I go ahead and just take that off, and that should help the other ones grow a little bit more quickly. Especially with this variety, it is a later producer, so it takes a much longer growing season. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take that one off as well and give these other ones a better chance of reaching maturity. So we've got those 2, those, and then we've got another couple back there. Now if you cut off any immature fruits or green leaves, you'll notice this white kind of sap that comes out of the branch, and that is actually kind of toxic. So you don't want to touch that because it could actually burn your skin or irritate your skin. So just be aware of that. Now the other one in a 7-gallon container is the Figo Preto. And this is another one that takes a much longer growing season. So I'm just going to go around and look for any tiny figs like this one here and just snap that off. We've got another kind of small one here. I'm going to snap that one off. So I'm going to basically check every week or so and see if any new tiny figs form and just take those off. Here we have a young Ronde de Bordeaux. This one is in a much smaller container. I think that's probably a 2-gallon. This is one I rooted, I think, early last year. But we've got 3, I think, figs growing on this one, and they're all pretty good size, so I don't have anything there to pinch off. Here we have Tacoma Violet, and it is in a 5-gallon container there. And the leaves on this one are kind of getting a little bit rusty. I'm not sure if it's from the sun or something else. But another thing to look out for on your fig trees is if you have 2 figs that are forming like right in the same node, that is usually not a good thing. So you want to take off the smallest one at least. The main crop figs on this one aren't quite as big as the other trees in the 7-gallon pot. Here's another one. This one seems to like to get double figs, so this is a really tiny one, so I'm going to take that one off. I don't see any more doubles on this one, but that's something to be sure to look out for and take off the smallest one. I'm really excited for this one. This is the Robert's Golden Rainbow, and this one has the largest main crop figs of all of my trees. And look at the size of those already, and these do get pretty big, so it's not too surprising that it has the biggest ones. But we do have a small one there, so I'm going to go ahead and pinch that one off. Now some of the leaves on this one are yellowing a bit, and a few of them have fallen off, so I'm not sure if it's getting too dry or what, but it still has quite a few leaves on it. There's another tiny one here to pinch off. But other than that, it's just loaded with figs, and hopefully we get some ripened in the next couple months. Now here's another kind of younger tree. I've had this one for, I think, 2 years now. I picked this one up at a local plant swap. It didn't produce any figs last year, but it does have some this year, and they appear to be some weird shape. They're kind of long instead of round. There's another one here. I think it's only got 2 figs, but it's a pretty small tree, and the label here actually does call it a compact Stella cherry. So I'm not too familiar with this variety, but I think it does tend to stay on the smaller side. I've got a bunch more figs over here, and let's start with this one here. This is the White Madeira, and this is one that I started from a cutting of my other White Madeira, I believe early last year. Now this one does look like it may have a little bit of that fig mosaic virus, which is a pretty common ailment for figs, but this is the only one I think that is showing any of those symptoms. But it seems to be doing pretty good otherwise. It does have a few figs on there that are decent size that might actually ripen this year. I think there's 3 of them there, and this stem here might put out some figs, but if I do see any, I'll probably take those off because I don't think they'll have time to ripen. Now here is the mother of that White Madeira. So this is actually the White Madeira #1, and this one has quite a few more figs. And the reason I took a cutting off of this is because I didn't like how this one was growing. It was growing a lot of side branches. So we've got this long side branch here, and I do have some support here to try and get it to grow back together. But this stem here was also like going way off to the side. We have one tiny fig here. I'm going to just take that one off. I think that's the only small one, but we've got quite a few here. This is one of my favorite figs that I tasted last year. It just wasn't really very productive, but it looks like I may get a few more figs on it this year. Here we have a Marseille Black VS in a 5-gallon container, and we've got quite a few figs forming on that one, and this one is probably, it looks like it is the tallest of all of my figs, but we've got quite a few figs growing on there, and they're big enough that they might actually reach maturity this year, except this one here, so I'm going to pinch that one off. Now another thing some people do to help the figs grow more quickly is they'll actually pinch the whole branch off of it and not just the fig, just the very tip of each of the branches, and I do occasionally do that. I might do that a little bit later, maybe next month on a few trees, but I'm not going to do that right now. Now this guy here is a pretty big monster. It's got several branches that I probably should prune back a little bit more heavily this winter, but this is another Ronde Bordeaux. This is actually the parent of the other one that I showed you, but it's got quite a few branches and there's not a whole lot of figs on it. There's one there, there's a few on that branch, but this used to be my most productive fig tree, but last year it didn't produce as many, and this year it doesn't seem to have as many either. So I think maybe if I prune it back some more, maybe that will help. Here we have a JFE Black Madeira, and this one seems to be, the leaves are kind of really bent downwards. I'm not sure if it's from the heat or what, but we have a few figs growing on this one, and I'm gonna pinch the top ones because they're really small. This is another tree that takes a really long growing season, so I really don't think those little ones are gonna reach maturity. So we're gonna grab all those off, and we're left with about 5 decent sized figs, so we'll see how those do. Here's another Burgessot Grease, and this is the baby of the previous one that I showed you, and actually it's not so much a baby anymore. It's actually grown quite a bit taller than the other one, but it is in a 5-gallon container, but it's growing a lot taller. It does have quite a few tiny figs that I don't expect will reach maturity, so we're going to go ahead and take those off. And I am watering these pretty much every day because these hot temperatures are just drying them out really, really quickly. And if you notice on the ones on this side, I've actually got a shade cloth to kind of cover the containers that are facing the sun the most to keep it from frying the root system. And I think that probably helps a little bit. Here we have the LSU Tiger, and this one seems to have the lightest colored leaves, and they are also the largest. Those are some pretty big leaves compared to all the other ones that I have, but this is the newest addition to the fig collection. I got this from a local friend this year, and I think, I'm not sure if it has any figs. Oh, there's a couple figs, but they're really small. This one here, I don't know, that one looked like it got moldy, but we got one there. We got another one here and another little one there. So we don't have a whole lot of figs on this one, just those 3. Now the last 3 figs are my Breba producers for this year. This one is the Brandon Street Unknown, and this had only 1 Breba this year, and unfortunately it got eaten by the bird, so I didn't even get to try it. So that was a big bummer. Was just planning to harvest it the following day and came out and found it was pretty much gone. So we have a lot of starlings in the area, and I think they're the ones that ate it. So I'm going to be protecting the figs that I can that are starting to get soft so the birds don't get to them. But it does have quite a few main crop figs forming, so it should get quite a few main crops. And this is the second tallest of the fig trees. This one here was labeled as Kathleen's Black, which it is not because the figs are actually green and the insides are kind of white. It only had 1 Breba, but I do have a net on that one because this one is starting to get soft and it looks like it will probably ripen up this week. So I'm going to keep that covered so the birds don't get to it. I am seeing some browning on mostly the underside of some of the leaves here. So I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but it hasn't really dropped too many yet. So we'll see how they do. This one has, I need to come through and pick off some of these smaller figs here, but we should get a lot of those. We do have 2 Brebas here that I do have netting around to keep the birds away because they were starting to get soft a few days ago. So I've got those covered just in case. And these are a purple variety, so I think these will be more attractive to the birds than the green ones. But this one is feeling pretty soft, so I'm going to go ahead and harvest that one and we'll show you what it looks like. And you want to harvest figs when they're actually really soft, and you can see that it might be wrinkling a little bit, so that is a good sign that it's nice and ripe. Okay, here we go. This is the first fig of the season, Nero600M. not quite as juicy as I would like to see. It's possible I didn't wait quite as long. Let's see how much it weighs. Probably should have weighed it before I cut it. That is 39.6 grams. So I think I'm going to leave the others on the tree a little bit longer. It feels pretty soft, but obviously it could have gone a little bit longer. Here's a closer look at the inside. Not too juicy, but it's not real dry. We're gonna go ahead and give it a try. It's a little bit crunchy from the seeds, but that is, I think, pretty typical of this variety. It does still have pretty good flavor, even though it's not as juicy as I think it should be. The skin is also a little bit rough. Definitely going to leave the other two on for a little bit longer, maybe another 2 or 3 days before we harvest. It still has a really good berry flavor, and I would definitely recommend this fig. It's very, very productive, probably my most productive fig that I have in a container. And I hope you enjoyed this update. Hopefully we'll have some more figs to try in the next update. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.